All right, Skinny, another practice in the books, another preseason game coming up on Friday. This was a lighter practice, and probably at this point in camp, I think it's a good thing that not much happened of note, because that means there's no injuries, there's no fights. It was just another day of practice for the Bengals.
Yeah, they had 3 11-on-11 sessions, which is a good number. One of them was competitive. It's called red zone lockout. They keep score where the defense is trying to keep them from scoring touchdowns. They get awarded points for that. Offense gets awarded points for scoring touchdowns, for making a field goal, etc. So that's the second time they've done that in camp. I think they like the competitiveness of that. But overall, yeah, it was pretty much a quiet practice to try to ease into Atlanta a little bit, and I think that's probably a good thing, because I think you're getting that spot now for these guys where Zach Hill mentioned the other day, a couple of hard practices, day off, and then come back and have maybe another practice that's kind of in between. I think this was kind of the in-between practice today.
All right, so the big news of the day, Myles Murphy, first-round pick, defensive end, trying to fight into that defensive end rotation. We had to double-check because we said, wait a minute, I don't think he's out there. It turns out he was not, and we don't really have an explanation.
No, I mean, he practiced on Monday. I didn't see him go down. Now, again, we were all trying to dodge raindrops, and the big story of Monday, obviously, was T. Higgins going down, and we'll get to him here in a second, which is good news that we'll have on T. Higgins if you don't know yet. So, yeah, Myles was not in the locker room after practice. Don't even know if he was here at the facility, to be quite frank, because I did not see him whatsoever. Again, I'm not going to read a ton into that other than he wasn't here today. That probably doesn't bode well for him playing in Atlanta, and that's unfortunate because you're wanting to see what the rookie's got and let him stack practices and stack some games and game reps on top of it. That'll be a disappointment if he can't go on Friday.
Especially for a rookie that we haven't really seen him flash yet. Granted, this is his rookie season. I'm sure getting the playbook, everything else. Expect maybe those guys take a little bit longer, and the good news is you don't need him to play right away, which is a good thing for that defense. T. Higgins, as you mentioned, he was out there. He had the compression sleeve on his leg. It didn't really seem to look like it hindered him all that much. He made a couple big catches and has become regular for T. Higgins because he's having a really good camp.
So you weren't there at this point of the practice yet, but you think we all hang around with each other and kind of share notes and talk. And so a few of us were standing there. We're like, don't see T, don't see. There's Jamar, there's Tyler, there's Irv Smith, don't see T. And then all of a sudden, when drill started, there was T, but then there was T in the compression sleeve, and so that raises your antenna a little bit. And then some early drills, it didn't look like he was pushing himself 100%, which understandable. But then when they went to the 11-on-11 team sessions, he looked like the same old T. Higgins to all of us, which is a good sign. And maybe it was him just, hey, I want to make sure this is right. I want to make sure I feel right. Remember, he had the collision with Nick Scott on Monday. He said after that practice in the locker room that he was all right. But, hey, a couple days go by, right? You never know. What you thought was all right may not be all right. And hopefully the compression sleeve is just a precaution more than anything else. Like I said, he looked like the T. Higgins that you'd expect T. Higgins to look like in practice today. It's a good sign, too, because, if that would have stacked a day like today where he doesn't go and he wasn't going to play in Atlanta anyway, then what's Sunday going to look like? So I think him being out there today was important for everybody, and the fact that what he did in 11-on-11 team sessions was good.
Now, I want Bengals fans to remember, compression sleeves are okay. That doesn't mean you're going to get hurt. Just because the last guy that wore one out of nowhere did get hurt, that's, there's a little PTSD there. So I think it's okay. T looked fine, and more precautionary, like you said, and he did look really good today. Also, the defense, I think, looked really good, even though the offense made a couple flashy plays, some big long passes for touchdowns. But Cam Taylor-Britt ended practice with an interception on Jamar Chase, which is huge because Jamar has absolutely cooked him for most of training camp, so that's a good thing to see. And the defensive line, I think, at times made that offensive line look not so great, which is not a bad thing.
Yeah, and I know that's probably going to give us all cause for pause, right? Of, are we getting an Orlando Brown that's not as good as what we thought he was? Is that interior offensive line just kind of mediocre? And is Jonah Williams having trouble at right tackle? And I would say against this defensive front right now, yeah, all those things are true, but I think a lot of that is because of that defensive line. And I think sometimes, too, while you're going semi-full contact and pass, I don't know how much you are as an offensive. Are you really punching and striking as an offensive lineman? Some of the things that you're going to try to get away or can get away with, and some of the techniques you're taught in those sessions because of just you don't want it to get overly physical. So I think sometimes we always err on the side of, oh, wow, that one side of the ball looks great, the other one doesn't. They do look great. There's no question about that. Trey Henderson looks like he's not just a Pro Bowl caliber player, an all-pro, all-time caliber player at the moment, the way he's playing, which is a good thing. And you mentioned the secondary. I thought Dax Hill flashed across like he did on Friday night from a hash mark across the field, from literally playing center field to bat another pass away. Now, he collided with DJ Turner, which gave you kind of a, oh no, what are we doing moment. Yeah, but again, he flashed again back there. So defense is playing very well at the moment, and the offense is sputtering a little bit because of the offensive line, and frankly, a little bit because of the quarterback play.
I think a lot of this, too, at this point in camp, you're going up against guys every single day. And if you're a Trey Hendrickson and you're a smart football player, you're going up against Orlando Brown. eventually you figure out Orlando Brown, if you go up against him enough, what he can and can't do. And that's good for Orlando because then he can fix those things. But also, it's going to make Trey flash a lot better, where usual Myles Garrett's not going to have a month to prepare for Orlando Brown Jr. He's going to have 4 days.
Right, and the other part, too, and Trey said this, you remember that he and Orlando got in a scuffle there on day one of camp and whatnot. But, both of those players afterwards talked about how much better they're going to make each other and the fact that they like the competition of them going against each other. We haven't seen a scuffle since, which is, I guess, a good thing. But I think it does show, hey, if you're Orlando Brown Jr., you're probably not going to face a whole lot better pass rushers than Trey Hendrickson. And Trey made a point. I'm not going to face a whole lot better left tackles than Orlando Brown. And he's getting the better of him right now. But, again, I think that's more of a testament to Trey. Like I said, some of it, too, to what offensive linemen really can and cannot do in some of these practice sessions.
All right, the big thing going on off the field, obviously, we're going to talk about the Joe Mixon situation as it pertains to this football team. I didn't go to law school. You didn't go to law school.
I did not.
Smarter
I love
people
law and order, mind you.
Okay, I'm still not asking you to represent me in traffic court. For the football aspect.
You got to go to traffic court?
No.
Okay.
Just in case. Just in case.
All right.
Joe Mixon not out there. He's dealing with other things. The running back situation being what it is, I think a big opportunity for Chase Brown, for Chris Evans, and I saw both would get some first-team reps today.
And unfortunately not a great opportunity for Travion Williams because he's not back fully practicing. Yeah. We do see him out there. He had pads on. I think he's taking – not even doing position drills, but he is warming up. But a lost opportunity for him. But to your point, I think a great opportunity for Chris Evans and Chase Brown. It is a matter of not just who's going to back up Joe Mixon. It's really who's going to be the third down running back. Joe's had his opportunities. It hasn't worked. The pass blocking hasn't worked. I'm not expecting him to change that anytime soon. And plus, you want to give him some snaps off, too. So third down was the Samaje Perine role. We know Samaje Perine played that role terrifically. We don't know if Chris Evans can pass block. We don't know if Chase Brown's willing. To Chris Evans' credit, he talked about in a story Charlie Goldsmith did for the Inquirer of some of the things he needed to do to toughen himself up to get ready to pass block. So he knows it's something he has to improve in, but this is a chance for those two guys for a second straight week to get multiple reps, to get some of those pass block reps. For Chris Evans to show, I'm not just a guy who's going to try to bounce every run. It's either going to be 50 yards or -5. I'm going to follow the tracks of where I'm supposed to go. We know what he can do as a receiver. Chase Brown, we didn't. We know he did a little bit at Illinois, but the other night, turned that one short pass into a 21-yard gain. So I think all this is good for both of these guys. Joe Mixon wasn't going to play in these games anyway. The one guy who's losing out is obviously Travion Williams, unfortunately.
All right, so this is our last podcast before the game on Friday. What do you expect we're going to see on Friday? Is it going to be more of, and I don't want to be insensitive to the guys who played last Friday, but that was a putrid offensive showing. It was very bad. Do you think we'll see better offense, or what are we looking for against the Falcons?
You'd hope so, but I don't have a lot of faith right now in the way Trevor Siemian and Jake Browning have played. Maybe they're going to wow us, and one of them's going to take the bull by the horns, and you're going to go, that's the guy, that's the backup guy. I hate for it to be not just that's not the backup guy, that it's neither one of these guys. Do you really want to start plucking your backup quarterback 3 weeks before the regular season starts? I don't think you want that process. I think they desperately want one of these two guys, and I think it's going to be one of these two guys, but do you want it to be by default, or do you want them to go earn it? I'd also like to see better performance from the backup offensive lineman, because the first team didn't play on Friday. I asked Ted Karras if he thought he was going to play this week, or they were going to play this week, and he said, they asked me to play, I'll play. If not, I won't. And I don't think they will. I don't know what the value of it is. I know everybody talks about getting off to a quicker start and all that, but with no Joe Burrow back there, you're not going to play your 3 wide receivers. With no Joe Mixon, is it really worth it to play the starting offensive line? It probably isn't. If they're out there, I'm not going to be stunned, but I don't think you're going to see those guys out there. So these backup offensive linemen have to play better, because there's jobs on the line there as well that haven't gotten themselves sorted out. And then do we see Andre Yoshevach, stack a second straight really positive game? If he does, then certainly he's a guy you start to go, he's going to be in the mix as one of these wide receivers here. Maybe not this year, but certainly moving down the road, at least a great step in the right direction for a 6th-round draft pick.
I want to see Charlie Jones. Him and Yosevas were the two that fighting for maybe one of those spots. Maybe he gets a punt returner, but we didn't see him flash against the Packers at all, and he's been a little dinged up.
Dealing with a torn labrum, he's playing through it. That's another thing. How physical is he going to be allowed to be? And maybe, last week coming back from that injury, he had a couple of catches for 11 or 12 yards. It wasn't a whole lot. Does he get a little bit more involved? He seems to be a lot more active, in the last couple of practices, looked much healthier. And again, playing through that as a receiver, that's a lot to ask, man. But, he's going to try to do it.
At this point in training camp, everyone's a little dinged up, everyone's a little tired, but you got another month or so before the regular season starts.